Hey everyone, it's Colin. How's it going? As our electronic devices get more and more complicated, they become harder to repair when they break. But what doesn't help matters is when manufacturers intentionally hold back parts, tools, and information on how to fix them. This time, let's talk about the right to repair movement. I'm going to lead off on this one with a bit of a story. This is something that happened to me maybe a year and a half ago, something like that. If you follow me on Twitter, you may actually remember some of this happening because I did tweet about it. So I use a 27-inch iMac at home. It's what I do all my video editing on. It's kind of my primary machine for computing at home. It's a 2011 model, so I've had it for quite a few years. I've had it since it was brand new. And one day, about a year and a half ago, I sit down to use the machine and it wakes up and the video is just garbled on screen. Like there's all sorts of colorful, crazy lines going on. Like half of the desktop is shifted like partially off the screen and wrapping around. It's just all sorts of messed up. I couldn't use the display. I just couldn't use the machine the way it was. But I recognized that problem because I had heard about it. It's actually a known problem with that particular model of machine, and it has to do with the video card. Basically, long story short, the video card starts to fail over time. It's the exact same problem as what caused the red ring of death in the Xbox 360. Now, the machine had long been out of warranty at that point. I mean, I got it in 2011, so the warranty expired in 2012. But Apple knew about this issue, and enough people had been affected by it that they decided to launch an extended repair program specifically for that issue. So if your computer had those symptoms, met specific requirements, then they would just go ahead and they'd fix the problem for you for free, even though the machine was a few years old. So I recognized that. I'm like, crap. Well, all right. Apple's got my back on this one. I'll schedule a Genius Bar appointment, take the computer to the nearby Apple store. We'll get them to get it straightened out. So I get my appointment set up. I limp through with my laptop for a while, which is not really conducive for video editing, but whatever. And get the computer into the Genius Bar. Get it set up. The tech takes a look at it, boots it into a special diagnostic software, more than just the built-in diagnostics, but they have their own tools, and starts to run through the tests. And he needs to make sure that certain tests about the video card fail in order for it to be eligible to get replaced. And as he's rolling through these tests, it tests all the parts in the computer. And one of the things that it flags is the hard drive. It says the hard drive is unsupported. And it continues on with the test, and okay, fine, whatever, the video card is bad, no big deal. Well, so he gets to the end of it and he goes, okay, yeah, it looks like your video card is having problems, but the test flagged on your hard drive. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, the machine has long been out of warranty. I upgraded the hard drive. I put an SSD in there and I used all the legit Apple parts and everything. But, I'll admit the computer didn't come from the factory with that particular drive installed in it. It's something that got upgraded after the fact. And long story short, basically, he says, I can't fix your computer. And I'm like, well, why? I mean, the video card has failed. And he goes, because you have a non-standard part in there. And I'm like, what does the hard drive have to do with the video card? And he goes, well, just policy is, if the machine's been touched by other than Apple, I can't work on it. That hard drive is not something that Apple considers a user serviceable part. Apparently, the only usable serviceable part on that computer is the RAM, and that's because you can take a little door off on the bottom to get at it. And he goes, because somebody other than Apple has been into this computer, I can't touch it. And I'm like, again, okay, fine. I could understand that if the video card was replaced previously, or I was screwing around with the video card and, maybe you would think that I'm trying to pull one over on you. But, the hard drive has nothing to do with the video card. And he goes, look, man, I understand, but I can't, do this repair for you. And I'm like, okay, well, look, I still need to get this computer fixed. And I imagine that a replacement video card is still cheaper than buying a whole new computer. The computer meets my needs otherwise. Could you get it in for paid repair? How much would that cost me? And he goes, no, I can't replace the video card for you. And I'm like, no, dude, you don't understand. I'm willing to pay you. Forget the whole extended warranty thing. Just tell me how much it would cost to get this fixed and how long it would take. And he goes, no, dude, you don't understand. I can't fix the video card. I can't replace it, no matter how much money you give me. Apple won't let me touch this machine ever again. And that was it. And I had to take my broken computer home. Well, I ended up reaching out to an authorized but third-party repair place in town. They were Apple authorized, supported, all that kind of stuff. They can do legit work like that. I reached out to them and I told them the story. And to their credit, they were very good at being like, yeah, no, man, that's BS. Maybe the Apple wants to play it that way, but we won't. We've heard of that problem. We've fixed plenty of machines with that problem before. Bring it in. We'll take a look at it. We'll get it straightened out for you. No worries. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I take it in. The guys are real nice. I tell them exactly, what's going on with the machine. It fails for them just as it did at the Apple store. I tell them about the hard drive. They go, yeah, that's no problem. The hard drive's got nothing to do with the video card. And I'm like, yes, finally, somebody understands. So they take the machine in. And they're like, all right, we'll call up Apple. We'll get a replacement part. You'll be done in a few days. The next day, they call me up. All right, so yeah, we've been having some trouble getting Apple, to cover this card for us. We've got a few other avenues, other people we can reach out to try and get that taken care of for you. But just so you know, it's taken us a little while. And I'm like, all right, well, that sucks, but okay, I'll whatever, do what you can. A few more days go by, and long story short, Apple doesn't want to cover it. Apple says, oh, no, it's not failing this one specific test or some kind of BS like that. And they just can't, the shop just can't get Apple to send the part out for the free replacement program. And talking with those techs, what kind of sounds like happened is, after I had taken the machine to the Apple store, my serial number got blacklisted. Is the best thing that we kind of came up with as to what happened. So Apple was just really just straight up done with that computer. Because, oh my God, somebody other than, Apple ever touched the inside of the computer, the whole thing just completely dead to them. They want nothing to do with it. And to wrap this story up, I ended up having to pay out of pocket to get that card replaced. It was about $375, which is a lot of money for a video card, especially the relatively low-end video card by, the standards of whenever it was, 2015, 2016, when that problem happened. That said, it was still cheaper than if I had gone out and tried to buy that card myself. It's a somewhat proprietary part. It uses a somewhat standard interface. It's called an MXM card. It's also used on some PC laptops that have interchangeable graphics, but there is custom firmware that gets flashed to this card, so it's somewhat Apple proprietary. The cheapest replacement card that I ever found that I could buy myself was $500. So I still saved money by paying this shop to buy the card and put it in for me, but I was still out $375 on a card that had a known fault, that could be reproduced, that matched all of the very specific requirements that Apple had for this repair program. It should have been free. But because I did any sort of upgrade to my computer, even though it was out of warranty, Apple wanted nothing to do with it anymore. And this is a perfect illustration in a few ways of the concept of right to repair. Now, I don't want to pick on just Apple. Actually, the concept of right to repair, it cuts across tons of different industries. It's not just electronics. It's not just computing. We're not just talking about computers and smartphones and tablets. It actually involves things like the auto industry. And in some ways, the auto industry started this whole argument and movement even before it trickled into computers and electronics. And it's really just the concept of manufacturers of products wanting to control the experience end-to-end of that product. They don't want to just sell the thing and then that's it. They want to control everything regarding that product, how it's used, what happens to it, how it's repaired, all the way from when somebody buys it until when it gets recycled. And we see that in a few different forms. One is access to repair parts. Repair parts for a lot of electronics. It used to be where you could call up a manufacturer and be like, hey, I need a new, whatever specific replacement part because mine broke, and they'll sell it to you. They connect you to their parts department, and they're like, oh, here's the part number, here's the price, give me your credit card, we'll ship it to you. Nowadays, it's like, oh no, we don't sell parts. You have to take it in to get it professionally repaired. Okay. Well, where are the places that you can take an item to get repaired like that? Well, that number is dwindling as well. And the only places that can do official, legit repair parts are ones that have been officially authorized by the manufacturer. And even those are starting to dwindle in favor of the manufacturer's own repair shops and depots. Again, not to really pick on Apple, but unfortunately they're a really good example of this. Since Apple stores, like they're legit, corporate-owned stores, they've been opening more and more of them. They've become more and more common. At least here in the U.S., the number of independent third-party authorized sales and repair places have dwindled. A number of really good ones, even here in Minneapolis, have closed just because their business has gotten killed by the Apple Store. The Apple Store, it's more glitzy, it's more glamorous, maybe a more convenient location, maybe, more convenient hours for people to get in. Maybe they can turn around repairs faster, but all these independent shops are struggling. They're having problems keeping going with it. So you get fewer and fewer options for repair. And so, it's heading more and more towards you have to go back to the manufacturer to get something fixed, at least if you want it fixed with any guarantee of quality. Of course, also repair information is hard to find, or specialized tools that you may need in order to do those repairs. And this is where it kind of gets into the auto industry. In the auto industry, yeah, you can buy legit, OEM replacement parts for your car. That's a common thing still. But as cars have become more and more intertwined with technology, and even though there are still standard interfaces for talking to the computer in a car and asking it, what are your sensors reading, what's wrong with you, what's broken, there's still a lot of proprietary stuff going on there, to the point where in order to do certain repairs, you need specific tools that the manufacturer wrote for that car. And sometimes that's software, and sometimes those are actual physical tools because of the way they designed a specific part. Well, that's easy for dealers who do repairs to get access to because that's part of the deal with being a dealer. But that really shuts out the third party independent repair shops. So yeah, they could go out and go to the dealer and buy an OEM repair part for your car, but if they can't get into the software on the computer in the car to get into that special mode to tell it, okay, hey, I just put this new part in and we need to recalibrate so you can work properly with it or whatever, well, that independent repair shop isn't going to be able to do the work. And that's another major thing about right to repair, is trying to make that information and those special tools available. Not necessarily free. People aren't necessarily saying you have to, manufacturers have to give all of that away, but they at least have to make it available. There needs to be some sort of program or process where you can go through that's not overly difficult to be able to buy a repair manual, to be able to buy a software tool or a physical tool that you need to do a repair. So it kind of comes down to three things: the parts necessary to do the repair, the software or tools necessary to do the repair, and then just the information on how to do it the right way. And of course, the industries that are opposed to right to repair, the manufacturers themselves, they always claim, well, it's because we're trying to protect the consumer, right? Well, they always cite examples of, somebody who goes and gets the battery in their smartphone replaced, and they go to an independent shop, and maybe that independent shop doesn't use a very good quality part. Maybe they use some sort of, generic third-party kind of cheap part, and maybe the battery in that replacement part either doesn't work well, or God forbid it blows up, starts on fire, pulls a Galaxy Note 7 kind of a deal. The manufacturers say, well, we're just trying to protect consumers from bad repairs and inferior quality parts and all that. Well, it's a little bit of a catch-22. Those independent shops, I'm sure, would be happy to use legit parts and be able to train the people performing the repairs on the right way to do it if only they had access to. Those independent repair shops who do things like screen replacements and battery replacements in smartphones, they exist because people can't necessarily afford to go back to the manufacturer to get those repairs done. Either they take too long or it's just too expensive in comparison. So we've been seeing, and this has been going on for a couple of years, but I'm doing this podcast topic now because it's kind of been gaining momentum again. We've actually been seeing potential legislation in a few states, in Minnesota, where I live, is one of them, that's trying to pass laws that basically, require manufacturers to be able to comply with some of this kind of stuff, to make repair parts available, to have some sort of program where you can get access to repair information, to basically open it up a little bit more so that the manufacturer doesn't control the thing, from cradle to grave, so to say, even though the thing may be out of warranty and even though you may have paid your money and that's it. That's really the argument, is when you buy a thing, you own it. You own it when you buy a thing. You're not renting it from the manufacturer. You're not leasing it from the manufacturer. They shouldn't be able to tell you, how you can use it, what you can do with it, what you're allowed to do and not do with it. That's kind of the crux behind right to repair. So at this point, I'm curious, what are your experience with this? Have you had a product that has failed on you and you weren't able to get replacement parts? You had to send it back to the manufacturer, and it was a seemingly simple repair as a cheap part, but they charged you a flat rate fee to get it replaced that was a lot more expensive, something like that. Be sure to shout out your experiences, your thoughts in the comments below. Of course, I'm always soliciting feedback, suggestions for future podcast topics, so be sure to hit me up with your thoughts on that as well, either in the comments or on social media. If you like the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at thisdoesnotcom. And as always, thanks for watching.